Pretty much ever since I started this podcast, I've been telling you about a service called Anchor. And if you hadn't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. And who doesn't have a podcast these days? Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you truly need to make a podcast in one place. Here's what you need to do. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey there, it's Chris Green, host of the 99% Local Podcast. This podcast exists because I love meeting new, interesting people and sharing stories of success and sometimes failures. The 99% Local Podcast brings stories from Middle Tennessee and Nashville-based entrepreneurs, business owners, organizations, side hustlers, musicians, authors, and anyone else that might be interesting and has a story to tell. Everybody has a story, their own unique upbringings, and passions for why they're doing what they're doing. As far as the name of the podcast goes, well, I think you'll be able to figure that out on your own. We are at episode number 26, and the year is just rolling right along. This week's guest is Jen Starsinic. Jen is a multi-instrumentalist and indie rock singer and songwriter who landed in Nashville back in 2014 after already cutting her teeth in the old-time music communities of Pennsylvania and West Virginia. A graduate of the Berklee School of Music, she had also earned her stripes as a road warrior by joining the touring lineups of several bands. Starsinic has been playing local rock clubs over the last few years all around Nashville, evolving her sound from a sparse indie folk to a more full band-oriented alternative rock while balancing a gravely ill parent and grappling with childhood drama. Jen's new album, Bad Actor, was released back on February 7th and finds the singer-songwriter in full confessional mode, probing depression and anxiety. Stay tuned after our discussion to hear one of the singles off of the new album called Picture in a Frame. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Jen Starsinic. Sorry about the logistical issues with I was with you thinking you were going to come down here.
Oh, no worries. No, it's thank you for not making me drive in Friday rush hour traffic.
Yeah, definitely. I have Jen Starsinic. Is that how you say your last name?
Yes, Starsinic.
Starsinic. Okay. So your Instagram says that you are a dream pop folk rock musician.
Sure.
Is that what you go with?
Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing journey on how to describe my music, which is, I think, something a lot of musicians can relate to. But my sound is kind of weird and a weird amalgamation of some things. Recently, someone was trying to come up with what a combo word for Americana and shoegaze would be. And a friend of mine, we asked the internet, and a friend of mine came up with boot gaze. So I might be a boot gaze artist. I come from a folk music background, so there's definitely some kind of elements of that in my writing, but the record sounds are kind of a mix of like pedal steel and synth and kind of dreamscapey sort of stuff. So it's weird.
Yeah, no, and we're going to get more into that. I want to talk about some of your influences here later on. But besides that, you're also the co-founder of a nonprofit organization called Girls Write Nashville, which is a really cool organization. We're going to dig into that as well. So you've been kind of getting a lot of recognition. I saw you've been featured in Vince Magazine, American Songwriter.
Yeah.
Pop Matters. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
It is cool. I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, and you've actually got national recognition for Girls Write Nashville as well. So
it's been a good year for press, I guess, which is one of those things that like it goes on the internet and you're like, wow, that's great, thanks, and then it really has kind of no meaningful impact on your day-to-day life. So it's just kind of one of those things of like, oh, cool. But then it's one of those weird things where then like other people see it and they're like, oh man, that's great. They're famous now or whatever. I saw a friend, and after Girls Write Nashville was on the Today Show this summer, and they were like, oh, you guys are famous now. And I was like, no, I don't think that that's true.
Yeah, I know. I being an independent artist, like you are, though, I'm sure all that helps out, though.
Oh,
It's not,
absolutely, for sure.
it's not like it used to be,
No, it really isn't.
being a musician and a touring musician. So,
Totally.
yeah. So you had a new album out. By the time this episode comes out, it's going to be about a month past. But you had a new album called Bad Actor come out on February 7th.
I did. Yes. Very exciting.
Yes, it's an awesome album. I've been listening to it nonstop.
Oh, thanks.
You have a couple of the singles, Picture in a Frame and Cold, look like they're doing pretty well on Spotify.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. People are listening to them, and I've heard from a lot of people kind of like you that said that they checked it out and then it's kind of become a part of their rotation. They've listened to it a couple of times, which is always something that is really nice for me to hear, that it's not just like, oh yeah, it was on a playlist and I forgot immediately about it. It might be something that has stuck in someone's head. So it's like the ultimate compliment, I guess, as a songwriter.
Yeah. So I know when Picture in a Frame, that single came out, which I think it was a couple months ago, maybe, you played a sold out show at the 5 spot in Nashville. And then you played there again for your album release show, correct?
Yeah, we did. We were just there. Well, as we're talking, it was this past Saturday, but like you said, it'll be a little after when this is airing. But yeah, we just played at the 5 spot for the CD release show. It was a really fun night. We had a local comedian friend of mine named MK Gannon came and emceed and did a little comedy set. And then we had a bunch of different bands played. Becky Warren played. She's amazing. She plays a lot with the Indigo Girls and is one of our volunteers in Girls Write. And my fellow co-founder, Georgia English, played. And yeah, we had a fun night. Still recovering from all the hubbub.
Yeah, I'm sure. So yeah, we're gonna dig into more about that in the album and your influences. But let's go way back. Where are you originally from?
I'm from Hummelstown, Pennsylvania, which is in South Central Pennsylvania. It's right next to Hershey, Pennsylvania, Chocolate Town, USA.
Yeah,
in Harrisburg. Right on. Basically, if you've driven up I-81, you've kind of maybe been able to throw a stone at it.
Yeah, if you didn't blink.
Yeah, but if you weren't in like the trance of just like, ooh, it's been farmland for 4 hours.
Yeah. So did you grow up playing music and singing in Pennsylvania?
I did. I actually started I started playing music when I was really young, like when I was 3 years old, but I teach music now, and a lot of times you have parents come in that are like, they want their kid to start taking lessons very seriously at 3 years old. And it was kind of the opposite for me in that my older brother was taking piano lessons and I got really jealous. Like I would go sit through his lessons and I was like, I want to do this. And then was told that I was too young. And, my parents didn't want to have to pay for music lessons. They're like, you're way too young. I'm like, no, this is a serious thing. We're not going to do this yet. And so I somehow convinced my brother to come home from his piano lessons and teach me what he learned at his piano lesson. So I guess I like kind of remember that happening, but I guess really my brother taught me how to play piano. And so, and then I loved it. I mean, I don't know that I was ever like a really studious practicer or anything, but I had the instinct to try to write music even from a young age. Like I found at some point some notebook paper with just like child like backwards letters like A, C, D, G, like notes written out to try to write something down. Of course, it didn't make any sense. It's nonsensical, but and yeah, I started playing violin when I was 9. And then there's a lot of bluegrass and old time music in that region that I'm from. And so I started playing bluegrass fiddle and pretty quickly found myself some gigs and was playing bluegrass fiddle professionally by the time I was 14. And
Oh, wow.
yeah. And yeah, and I would go down to, we're just right there next to West Virginia. So I would go down and play old time music at a festival called Cliff Top in West Virginia, which is kind of the mothership for that kind of music. And it's not like a music festival like you're used to where there's stages and bands perform, but rather just a bunch of dirty hippies get together in a state park and like play trancy music for 4 days straight. And so that was kind of my musical upbringing.
Yeah. So moving forward, you went to Berklee School of Music.
I did. Yeah.
In Boston, graduated there.
Yeah. I was super fortunate to get to go to Berklee.
So did you go there for a specific instrument or for vocals or?
I was a violin performance major. Everyone kind of declares a principal instrument at Berklee. So I was studying violin. And then while I was there, I had written songs. I started writing songs when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old, but was like incredibly shy about it. Was one of those kids that like if someone like walked within a 10-foot radius of me, I had to stop for fear of anyone hearing the song that I was singing or the song that I wrote. And then I went to Berklee and I was playing fiddle, and there's a professor up there named Mark Simos, who's a great songwriter. He's Alison Krauss has recorded a couple of his songs that are really great. And I was kind of playing music with him, and he asked if anyone had songs that they had written. So I shared a song, like the one song that I had ever let anyone hear. And he was like, hey, this is good. You should get into studying songwriting here. And it was like a lot of the scholarship money that I had gotten to go was from the writing department and the composition department there. And so, he just really encouraged me to take that more seriously and learn to stand behind it a little bit more. And so as soon as I got into doing that up there, it was like, oh, okay, I'm letting myself feel and realize that this is something that's like incredibly important to me, more so than like playing. Like I like playing instruments a lot. I love fiddle, but like to write a song, to write a great song that sticks in someone's head and really says something and means something to them, has always been like the most worthy pursuit to me in my mind.
Yeah. So what was your degree in then out of Berklee? Was it in violin?
I think maybe I graduated with a songwriting degree. I had started playing. I did graduate. I don't know. I'm sure sitting in the pile over here in my house. I should go look at what it says. I had started touring with some bands by my like senior year of school. So I kind of met with an advisor and was like, how do I graduate quickly? Because I do want to graduate, but also I'm like only in town half of the time. So yeah, I think I tested out of some things and they were like, oh, be this major and then you can graduate pretty soon.
So how long after you finished up at Berklee, how long after that did you actually move to the Nashville area?
So I graduated school in May 2013, and I was playing fiddle with a band that was based out of Nashville. And so I think I stayed living in Boston for a little bit after that, kind of closed out that year. And then I think I moved all my belongings like into my dad's basement in Pennsylvania because we were just on tour so much. And I kind of floated / was on tour all the time for a few months. And then I was trying to figure out where I wanted to move. I didn't really want to stay in Boston, and I'm a Pennsylvania girl and I love the city of Philadelphia. So I was kind of looking at Philly and kind of looking at Nashville because that's where the band that I was playing with was from. And they were really tired of buying me plane tickets. And I weirdly had more friends in Nashville, and we had just toured through a couple times, and I really liked, always just felt really good here when I was here. So I moved to Nashville February of 2014 and have lived here ever since. And it's my new home.
Yeah, 6 years ago. So what area in
Yeah.
Nashville are you actually in?
Oh, I live in Donaldson now.
Donaldson, okay.
Yes. The hip D. No. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Ugh, instant regret. I wish that the hip D nickname would really die. I would sign a petition for everyone to stop using the term hip D.
So you got the Nashville. Were you still toured with that band then for a few years?
I toured with them for maybe like 8 more months after I moved here, and then it kind of combusted as bands do in the grand scheme of things. You know, it was just we'll just say not the right situation for me anymore. And
Sure.
you know, I've worn a lot of different hats in music. Like I play like piano and keys and guitar and fiddle and sing, and I write. So I've done the sign person thing, and also kind of more recently just started doing at the time I had never really done the front person thing. I had kind of released like a folk record that I recorded in my friend's apartment, and had kind of caught the bug for that. You know, I really wanted to be playing my own music too, and it's hard to find that balance. It's taken me some time. Now I kind of have more of a better balance of that. I like to play side gigs when I can and do my own stuff. But at the time I was just on tour playing fiddle for other people's stuff, like all of the time, just like the same set night after night after night, and kind of found it pretty unfulfilling. And two, had just like I had been playing fiddle for different people for, at that point, like 11 years. I started doing it when I was 14. So you'd think like, oh yeah, you're fresh out of college, like ready to get it done. And it was kind of like, yeah, let's go tour. Oh wait, I am sick of this. I've been doing it for 10, 12 years, just playing fiddle, and really just wanted, personally, like needed a little bit of stability. So I actually quit the band that I was playing in and got like a little temp office job in Nashville to just kind of know where my money was coming from for a little bit of time, and to like save some money to make a record eventually. And then the story of this record is kind of that I did do that, and then we set about like, oh, let me record again and then get all of this moving. And then my life kind of crashed and burned and fell apart in a bunch of different ways. My dad got really sick. He had what they call cryptogenic liver cirrhosis, which is liver cirrhosis where they don't know why. He was never really a big drinker or anything, and got really sick and is doing really well now. He received a liver transplant, but I was one of his primary caregivers through all of that. So I was back and forth between here and Pennsylvania a lot. And like at that wonderful kind of mid-20s age where just like all the crap from your childhood and your family of origin that you haven't dealt with is just like washing over you, and you're like, who am I? And like, so that lovely period of time. And so I was kind of processing a lot of stuff and had a lot of responsibility on my shoulders and trying to just keep afloat and make enough money to pay rent and going back and forth, and, you know, taking care of my dad and really scared of what the future might hold or not hold or any of that. So I kind of unfortunately was not able to like play music or tour or do any of that for a few years, which was also really hard. But it ended up being, you know, you can't, it's weird to say like, oh, I'm grateful for that time, because it's like, oh, you're never really grateful that someone that you love almost died, or you can't really be grateful that you dealt with childhood trauma and you had to deal with that, or any, you know, you can't really be grateful for anxiety or depression or any of that. But in another way, it was like I do hold a lot of value for the growth that happened during that time. And so a lot of these songs were kind of songs that were written about that, which for me was kind of taking a hard look at my self-beliefs and whether or not they were really true. And so that's kind of where the bad actor thing came from. It was both like me feeling like I was being disingenuous with myself, and that was hurting me and hurting other people around me. But also at the same time, like I think that's true for a lot of people. And I felt like a bad actor in that, like, I started going through this kind of period of crises and would talk about it a lot. And it seemed like it weirded people out. And I just felt like, oh, I'm a bad actor and that I can't pretend that this isn't happening. But it's been funny since I've put this record out and started talking a lot about that stuff. I get like private messages from people, even if it seems like it makes someone a little uncomfortable. I get so many like private messages from people who are like, oh yeah, I deal with that too. Oh yes, this happened in my life. So I think it's all kind of more common for all of us than we really talk about.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and all that's really clear in the songs on this album.
Yeah, it's very emotionally honest. I think that that's just something I've always really valued in like my favorite music is like those songs that made me feel seen. And I don't know, music that's not emotionally honest, I'm just like so bored by.
Yeah. I noticed. So your first album was The Flood and the Fire,
Yeah.
correct? And that was what, maybe 5-6 years ago, or was
No,
that
like
right
6
after you
years
moved to
ago.
Nashville?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was right about that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can musically, I can tell differences between that album and this new one you've put out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm gonna throw out some like influences that I see, and don't be offended, but
Oh, no, sure.
like Jenny Lewis,
Yeah.
Lucinda Williams,
Oh.
Alison Krauss, even like Casey Musgraves. It's all of them I would throw in there. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
cool.
just
Thanks.
yeah,
I'm not
definitely.
offended by any of that. Those are all awesome people.
Good. So I saw for this album, and I don't know if you play live with them, but you kind of had some heavy hitters record the album with you, right?
Yeah, it was so we had like a production trio of me and John Wood on drums and Parker McAnally on bass. Those guys are both in a band called The Prescriptions together.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of started developing the songs. Or I mean, I had written the songs, but figuring out how we wanted them to sound, I had kind of very decidedly like didn't want to make anything that was like super folky anymore. I had kind of felt like not that I don't like that music or didn't want to be in that world or anything. It was just for me, I guess just like a huge nerd, and I was like, there's so many cool sounds. Like I just wanted to be able to be pretty free with it and not be like, this is a folk record, you can't put synth on it. But yeah, Paul Niehaus plays pedal steel and lead guitar on it. And if you're not familiar with Paul, he plays with like Iron and Wine, and he was a founding member of Calexico, and he plays with Justin Townes Earl and Iris DeMent, and he's just a genius. Like, and I met Paul just playing in Nashville. He came up to me after a show once and was like, hey, I had said something on stage about recording soon. He was like, hey, I want to play on your record? And I was just like, what? Because Paul's so good and the nicest person ever. So Paul played on it and he just made it so much better. Likewise with Ben Alleman, who plays keys, who plays with Jenny Lewis and was in Grace Potter's band for a while. He's from New Orleans and was in Dr. John's band for a long time. So he's also just melodic musical genius. And it was a really fun recording session with all of those guys. Like we had a lot of,
sure.
Yeah, it was, I remember driving home afterward and just being like so sad that it was over. It's like, I don't care about releasing this or like the songs. Like I wish that I had more songs and more money so that we could just be in the studio doing this all of the time. Cause it was a really great couple of days that we were all in the studio together.
Oh yeah. So you've been here 6 years. What role does Nashville play into what you're doing with music, and how does that influence you?
Yeah, I think it has a big influence in that. I always say that Nashville to me feels kind of like living at summer camp. For a musician, It feels like living at summer camp because it's just like, all of your friends play music. There's so many musicians around. There's just always someone doing some cool thing. It's just really different than anywhere I've ever lived, where it was kind of like you're more immersed in the mainstream, and then like you and your friends who play music are the weirdos. That was always how it felt to where I grew up, which was kind of like a conservative small town. It was very much
Yeah.
like, okay, all right, stoner weirdo freaks, like what are you doing? And it was just like, well, we're just making weird ambient guitar noise. What's wrong with that? But yeah, Nashville just kind of feels like summer camp in that way, that it's just so it's so ingrained in the town. And despite maybe some of the appearances on like the Nashville, you know, nationwide media presence of like maybe, you know, you go places and people have impressions of what Nashville is, but I think living here, it's a much different sort of vibe. It's very community oriented, and there's so much cool music happening even just beyond country music. And people like Paul, who are legends and so chill and supportive of new musicians and just trying to make good art. So yeah,
yeah.
Nashville, I like it.
Well, you're obviously still here, so
Yeah, totally. Well, it's funny, people are always like wondering, they're like, okay, you live here, how long have you lived here? And you're like, 6 years. They're like, okay, that's a long time. They're trying to figure out, like, did you just move here a year ago, or were you part of the New York Times wave? Like, why did you move here? How long are you going to be here? They're like, okay, 6 years. And they're like, all right, well, are you going to stay here? Like, how long are you going to live here? And you're like, they're like, are you here for good? And you're just like, I mean, I can't predict my life until death, but like, yeah, I think, you know, I solidly live here. It's just, I have that conversation with locals a lot. They're just like trying to figure out how invested to get in you.
Yeah, I have that problem now. We've only been here less than 2 years, and we were part of the mass exodus coming out of Illinois.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard anything about that, but it's like record number of people leaving Illinois to come to Nashville.
Wow.
It's insane.
I didn't know specifically that about Illinois, though. I do know a lot of Illinoisans. What do you call someone from Illinois?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people from Illinois that live down here, so that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. So we're going to talk about your organization in a minute, but are you doing the music thing, and are you touring full time or trying to?
No. Not
Okay.
touring full time, and not trying to tour full time.
Yeah.
I do tour, and would maybe like to tour more than I do now. Again, I'm kind of coming out of a period of not touring at all. I don't know. It always feels like among musicians, or at least how people talk about music, there's like a weird pride thing about being on the road full time. You just want to be able to say like, yeah, this is how many gigs that I have, that I'm full time on the road.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, have you met someone, or have you ever done that before? Have you ever toured full time? Like, it's exhausting and terrible. I feel like most bands, when they can, tour less than full time, because it's hard to keep being like a healthy human person, being on the road that many dates per year. So I tour and sometimes, but I kind of like having a nice balance of going out on the road sometimes and being home sometimes and playing music sometimes and doing other things sometimes, and like staying connected to my community here. And balance.
Yeah. What balance? Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's gotta suck these days a little bit to be an independent artist, you know, both with touring and even trying to, you know, sell and promote your music. I mean, and thank God for social media. I mean, can you still buy music like on iTunes? I don't even know.
Yes, you can still buy music on iTunes. It's funny. I would say being an independent artist does suck. It kind of, everything's always in flux. There's not really a prescribed way to do things. I mean, I was never really a working artist in the good old days, as they say, of like
right.
major label record deals. I would think that if I existed then, there would be no chance in hell though that I would be getting like a major label record deal. So in some ways I have to think like maybe it's better that I exist now at a time when you can kind of be a small business and find your niche and do what you want. And there isn't like walls up to distribution.
Yep.
And that way, then you do have to like fight through that major amount of noise that is like everyone and their mom can put music up on Spotify or, you know, distribute it through indie distributors. But in that same way, you can be an independent artist and own your masters and like I own your publishing. I own all my shit. So,
Yeah.
But there's also, you know, you also like don't need iTunes. Like you can go to my website and buy, like iTunes will make you download their weird files. You can go to my website and download digital copies of my website directly from me. And you can order a physical copy and people can buy vinyl and they're kind of aware that, so it's like, oh, iTunes is going away because it is kind of stupid. Like we don't need it anymore. It's like I can sell you digital downloads through my Squarespace website. You don't need to go to iTunes.
Yeah.
Apple doesn't need any of that money.
You know, no, the same thing like with Spotify. I know other artists that are on there and they're barely getting anything, you know, for their music. So yeah, definitely. I think the best thing, it's more personal too when you buy it directly from the artist too. You know, a lot of artists are going back to that method. You know, they're, you know, doing everything themselves and
totally.
Yeah.
Which it's like it's such a, I don't know, like everything, it's such a double, man, I'm such a hippie all the time. I just want to talk about balance and zen and the yin and yang of everything, but it really is a double-edged sword in that it's like, well, you have the ultimate control, you own all your stuff, you're making all the money, and then also you have to do everything yourself. So, you know, you're an artist, but you're also having to like figure out how to distribute things and how to you know. So and then that ends up being, just like a ton of work that maybe your brain is not built for as someone who is a musician and a creative person. But, you know, I do think that we're coming out slowly on top. I'm excited that people still like vinyl. They want to do that. Yeah, I don't know. The music industry and how everything works is so in flux right now. It definitely is tough.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So, All right. So let's transition, talk a little bit about Girls Write Nashville. You're involved in kind of the all ages scene. You're working to tie the music scene and local community together. And you kind of using your themes, you know, in your life and your music, that with what you're doing with Girls Write Nashville. So can you just kind of talk about the organization?
Yeah. So Girls Write Nashville is a nonprofit that my fellow musician and artist friend, Georgia English and I, we say that we accidentally started a nonprofit. And the story behind that is that we're currently in our 4th season, but so 3 or 4 years ago in 2017, we got a local Metro Arts Thrive grant, which is a micro grant that they give to local artists to do a community project, which I would totally recommend any artist in Nashville to like look into that, who might be interested in that. You can apply for any kind of community art project that you might want to do. And it's definitely, the Thrive program is a super special thing that we have in Nashville. But we applied for it to do a program where we would pair 9 local girls with 9 female professional songwriters in Nashville, and the adult writers would mentor these girls that were interested in songwriting, while the girls also monthly met up all together to kind of share with each other what they were working on and have a music community with each other in that way. And then at the end of 6 months, we would go in a recording studio and record all of their songs with an all-female band and make a compilation record of the songs that they wrote. And it was just such a success, such a crazy, cool experience. All the kids loved it. They did a CD release show that like packed the Family Wash. Family Wash was still open at the time. And it was like by far the most diverse crowd, because that was part of what, you know, Georgia and I, we taught a lot of teen girls and could see the kind of crisis of confidence that they went through with themselves at that age. And it's really tough for all kids, but I mean, I'm a woman, so I can speak to that kind of preteen, teen age and all that goes on for a girl. It's a tough period of time. And we were those girls once too. And then also locally, how there seems to be such a separation between like the local community and the music community, and how, you know, the local and the music communities both tend to be kind of segregated. And we thought like music is such a great unifier. There's such an opportunity here to break down some of those walls. And it was so nice. It was so special. And so at the end of the season, all the girls were like, cool, see you next year. And we were like, sure. So at which point, two musicians who had not taken math class since junior year of high school started a nonprofit and applied for tax exempt status, which will forever be secretly the most impressive thing that I or she has done, is the fact that we got tax exempt status without anyone helping us, because it's very difficult. It's extremely tedious process. But yeah, we have this nonprofit now. It's a songwriting and production mentorship program and creative community for teen girls in Nashville. So we have 5 after school programs around Nashville. We're starting some in-school music programming, and we also have our flagship program is that All City Artists Guild. And in all of our programs, the girls work with local female artists, learn about songwriting, learn about music production, get some hands-on experience with music production and technology, and get to record their songs, and in an environment that is it's very trauma informed. All of our the teachers in our programs and everything go through trauma informed trainings, and yeah, so that's Girls Right.
Yeah. So is there specific areas of Nashville that you serve, or specific school districts?
So we're in Metro Public Schools, and so we work a lot with public schools here, and more specific, we have a lot of after school programs in Antioch. We had received a grant this year to specifically serve that neighborhood. It's so geographically isolated from the rest of the city, and with not really having extensive public transportation, it's really hard for kids to get from Antioch into programming that might meet downtown. So we're in a bunch of schools in that neighborhood, as well as Cresswell and North Nashville sort of area. And and then our All City program is open to kids anywhere in Davidson County. They come to us in our little office in Metro Center.
Yeah, that's awesome. So are you still doing you still recording and producing a compilation album each year for?
Yeah, so All City Artists Guild goes into the studio and does like a full band record, and then we partnered with a local company called Morris Light and Sound we designed these mobile recording units, and all of our after school programs have these little mobile recording rigs, so kids in those programs can record themselves and each other right in the program. It gets tough with transportation and getting kids to a recording studio. So a lot of the kids in our after school programs face a lot of those transportation barriers, where it's just not really possible for them to like get a ride somewhere or anything. So, but we still wanted them to have that opportunity to record and to learn about recording and learn about technology. So we're really excited, actually more excited kind of, that they get these cool little rigs where they can learn how to do it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a cool program.
Totally. It's a fun thing that we get to do.
Yeah, and I know we talked about this on the onset, but you guys were featured on the Today Show last summer.
We were, that was crazy.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Did they reach out to you, or?
Yeah, a local music publicist friend of ours had run a little PR campaign pro bono for us at the end of the one season, and then we didn't even have a Girls Right Nashville Twitter, but someone else tweeted an article about it, and a producer from the Today Show who specializes, her area is producing segments about women in the arts and stuff, and saw it and thought it was really cool and reached out to us. And we had just ended a season, so we were like, we don't even have programming starting. Right now we're only during the spring semester, so we were like, we don't even have programming starting for like another 6 months. And we were sure that it was going to be one of those things that would be really cool, but was going to like float by us. But the producer from the Today Shows really kept with us and made it happen. And yeah, then we were on the Today Show, so it was kind of crazy. It was funny that all of none of the kids now are not really familiar with cable television or like broadcast TV or anything.
Right.
So we were like, we're going to be on the Today Show, you guys. And they're like, what's that? Is it? I thought it was called Good Morning America. I thought it was called The Tonight Show. And we're like, those are all things. They're all different. Don't tell them that you think it's Good Morning America, because that's ABC and it would be rude. It's always I like working with kids. I like hanging out with them because it's always just gives you such good perspective.
So let's get towards to wrapping up. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but
Sure.
so I always try to do a little digging or I guess stalking of my guests. So
Sure. Yeah. Internet
so
stuff.
do you teach music lessons as well?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Like all instruments, violin, viola, cello,
I teach
things like that?
violin, viola, piano, guitar.
Yeah. Are you doing that on your own or with a specific organization?
Well, actually, it's something that's really exciting is that we're starting to teach some lessons through the Girls Write Nashville banner, and but yeah, I teach lessons through my own and for a couple other places around, and yeah, teach lots of lessons.
So what kind of things do you do in around Nashville when you're not working on music, if you have any extra time? Like, what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, I really, maybe hand in hand with my passion for music, I really love to dance, and so I take a contemporary dance class every week. If anyone is into dance, there's a woman named Lindsay Fine-Smith that teaches at a really cool place called Construct Nashville. So I take some classes there, and she's a great teacher. And that place Construct is really cool. They're kind of like it seems like they're kind of, I don't know anything about this. I'm officially talking out my ass at this point. But they seem like they're the kind of cornerstone to like a breakdance scene in Nashville, and it's all out of that place Construct. So that's pretty cool. What else do I like to do for fun? I don't know. I just like to hike. Moving here from Boston, like I would always get really frustrated in Boston that you had to drive for like 4 hours to get somewhere where it felt like you were in nature. And I like that about Nashville, that I can just like go down to Percy Priest and feel like I'm in the middle of the woods. So I hike around a lot. That's about it. Yeah. Not too much free. I'm an independent artist and I run a nonprofit, so not too much free time.
Yeah. So what's next for you musically? You put this record out. Are you going to focus on, maybe try to do some touring? Or are you going to focus on playing more around Nashville or?
Yeah, both. We're playing some local shows coming up, or have some tour dates lined up through the spring and the summer. And yeah, just getting out there, playing some shows, putting this record out, making a next record. I kind of had a lot when I was writing a lot of these songs. Once we started kind of producing this EP, there were a lot of other songs that kind of went along with it that I continued to write. So I kind of naturally wrote the next record. Kind of, they're going to be cousin records probably. They're pretty related. So at some point we'll get to making that one.
Well, awesome. So how can listeners find out about you as well as Girls Write Nashville?
Sure.
Let's give some plugs for your website and social media.
Yeah, my website is jenstarsinic.com. If you're like, well, how do you spell that? It's star, S-T-A-R, sin, like what religious people don't want you to do, and then with an I-C at the end. And you can I'm on all the stuff's on Spotify. A friend of mine posted recently his guide for how to support independent artists, and I just like wanted to get mail to everyone in the world, which was that make sure that you buy music directly from an artist. If you really like them, like buy a physical copy, buy their merch, if they have a t-shirt, buy their t-shirt. But then also, if you're someone who streams into Spotify or Apple Music, to then keep streaming it, because those numbers do matter. And the streaming royalty rate is low, but the industry looks at those numbers a lot, and you do make a little bit of money off of it. And the way the algorithms work is like the more people are streaming it, then the more likely it is that Spotify will like playlist things. So it is really important to keep supporting artists in that way. So you can find me on Spotify and on my website and buy stuff from my website. And I'm on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Girls Write Nashville. It's the same deal. We have a website. It's girlswritenashville.com. We're on social media. We're starting our own podcast, actually. We're recording the first episode here in a couple of weeks. So that probably won't be out by the time this airs, but if you like podcasts, you can maybe follow us on social media and keep up to date with that.
Well, awesome. Thanks, Jen. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Chris.
Well, hey, that was my discussion with Jen Starsinic. As soon as this podcast is over, go check out our music on our website at jenstarsinic.com or on social media at Jen Starsinic. Jen plays out quite a bit around Nashville as well, so check out those dates and plan to go catch one of her shows in the near future. And please, please support independent music in Nashville. Before we get out of here, thanks for listening, and as always, you know how to find me. You can always email me at 99percentlocalpod@gmail.com or hit up the podcast on the web at 99percentlocalpod.com or on Instagram at 99percentlocalpod. And until next week, take care, wash your hands. We'll see you later.